So here we are in the launching the new Startup Guy Malaga chapter, and it's a pleasure for me having Joaquin Cuenca, the CEO of FreePik, in for this first event. Well, I don't know if it is a first event or a second one because we have been in the Spanish session just before, but it's a real pleasure. So the agenda or the scheme of the event will be very simple. I will be introducing Startup Grind very briefly. Obviously, welcoming and giving a big thanks to Joaquin for joining us, and that is the core of the event, the fireside meeting and interview with Joaquin. And we will be going through his experience, challenge, and advices in the different startups he has created, scaled, and sold. And finally, we will have a few questions from the audience. And in this case, hopefully we will have time for doing some networking. And finally, I will give some update or telling what is going to be the future events and initiatives that we are going to do with the Startup Grind in the coming months. And that's it. Starting with introducing Startup Grind for those and don't know this initiative. I started like more 10 years ago. Normally has been quite linked to Google for Startups. Normally is known like a Startup Grind in partnership with Google for Startups. And we basically have a very strong values. We try to believe in making friends, not contact, believe in giving, not taking, and believe in helping others before helping yourself. So that is the philosophy that we are going to follow with the Startup Grind in Malaga and the global community. This is a great opportunity for the local ecosystem in becoming more global and to join forces with the other more than 2.5 million global community that is involved with the Startup Grind in more than 620 chapters in 125 countries. And partnership so interesting like Google for Startups, Oracle for Startups, or Amazon Web Service, among other technology and innovation companies. So I have done as short and simple as possible, and now is the time for talking about our host. Our guest, Joaquin, is one of the most successful serial entrepreneurs in the Malaga and Andalusia ecosystem, and also in the Spanish ecosystem as a whole. Very briefly, from my side, he has three major, we can say, success cases in startups. One is PANORAMIO, that sold to Google. The second one is BESOCCER, that is a very popular sport tech startup in the football field. And FreePik, which is the digital content free marketplace and has been growing and growing, becoming very global and attracting attention from different international players, and recently was sold to an international fund even in the COVID times. So as I say, Joaquin, pleasure having you here. You are the first guest in our new adventure in Startup Grind Malaga. I really thank you for your time because I know that you are especially busy in this period of the Black Friday and everything. The floor is yours. I don't know if you want to add anything for that brief introduction that I made about your profile. And we have like 40 minutes for talking in depth about your experience, challenge, and advices that you can give to local entrepreneurs that want to become global from an emerging ecosystem like Malaga or any other city that is not located in Silicon Valley or the big investment hubs worldwide.
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for listening. In my case, I pointed out before that I'm more comfortable explaining what's my experience rather than giving advice, because my experience is also that everybody is working under different conditions, and it's very difficult to just from the outside to give some advice that is going to be useful for everybody. So I just prefer to explain what I went through and what kind of things happened to us and how we reacted to them, more than telling people what to do in any case. So I will try just to explain what happened to us, how we work out things, and feel free to extract your own conclusions.
Okay, I will be following more or less the same schemes, the same scheme that we have done in the previous interview. Obviously, maybe a few questions will vary, but the first thing is I think people will be interested to know is that how was your first entrepreneurial adventure? How do you become entrepreneur coming from a technical background like a computing and physics degree?
It was kind of by accident. Like, I was not looking for that. What happened is that an old friend of mine from high school started interviewing people that were doing startups in Barcelona. And he came across with some strange character, which is Ubaldo Huerta. It's an old, it's a Cuban that went to Silicon Valley and did a career there. And then he just decided to travel all around the world and ended up in Barcelona. And there in Barcelona, he was looking for a job. And sadly, he didn't find anything that satisfied him. So his natural reaction was to create something to look for jobs. So he made a clone of a website that was very successful in San Francisco, which is Craigslist. So he called it Loco, and it was available in Barcelona initially. Eduardo, my friend from high school, pushed him to just make it a little bit bigger and make it available for the whole of Spain, and started its expansion. And then Eduardo got in touch with me to help them with the coding the site and adding new features. And I started doing that on my free time. At the time, I was employed in Paris, and I was not really looking for like creating my own company or something like that. I was more attracted by the craft of programming, by math, physics. That's the thing that really that I really enjoy. So it was a little bit by accident. I got involved with it. What happened is that a few months later, eBay came to Europe and acquired Loco. My lawyer says that I'm kind of a rabbit leg. Like, I'm usually pretty lucky that I got involved with projects that work out well. And so for us, it was kind of a wake up, the sense that we saw like coming very close this thing where you work in a company that you create by yourself, and somebody came and puts a pile of money on the table and just purchase your company. It was like, wow, this really happens. It's not just in the movies. After that, I was still reluctant to create my own company, but again, Eduardo made a trip to Paris, came to my flat, and really insisted that we should create something new. And just a few weeks later, actually a couple of months later, I came up with the idea of doing PANORAMIO, which was the idea of putting photos in Google Earth, which was brand new, Google Earth and Google Maps, actually. So Google Maps came out of nowhere. It made a big blast. When I saw it, I was thinking, yeah, it's great to see the streets and everything from an eye view. But it will be really cool to have people posting their photos that they took on the ground floor and to have both perspectives blended together. Eduardo loved the idea, and we started working on this project. And as they say, the rest is history.
Okay, perfect. I also asked you before. I'm from Spain, and we have a big problem with unemployment. The difference between people is studying and what the market is demanding. I know. I would like to have your feedback about your personal experience, or what you think could be a good way for improving that matching between where the employments are and what people are studying.
Sure. So first of all, I mentioned before that I really like that my studies help me think differently from other people, in the sense, I got a much more scientific background than some other people, and that really helps me on the day-to-day, because in business, you create many different models to try to understand what's going on in the business. And some people are really easy to cheat by those models. And I think I have a more critical view on them. And I usually am more, a little bit more reluctant just to trust simple models. We usually go a little bit deeper than that. And I think that comes from my physics background. But now it is completely true that sometimes what you study at university is not really related what's going on the industry. I think part of that is due to having a weak industry, okay? In the sense that there is no so much feedback, not so much collaboration between university and industry. That makes people that are in university really detached with the state of the art in the industry, and really detached with the needs of the industry. So kind of both worlds are evolving in parallel here in Spain, okay? People that's my feeling, okay, that they are not as close as they should be. You have places like San Francisco, obviously, and many other places in the world where they are way closer, and where university can really apply their brain to problems that are really a problem in the industry. Okay, something that I saw in France when I finished my studies in France. I forgot to mention that. So I went there as an Erasmus, and at the end I stayed in France for 8 years. In France, when I landed there, I was a bit surprised that to finish your degree, it was mandatory to spend 6 months working in a company. Okay, and even in physics, which is really can you work as a physicist in a company? There is an industry for that. So it was really weird. So sometimes if you didn't want to go to the industry, you could still do a stage in academia. So the same universities were taking students to do this kind of internship. But it was really telling that it was not just, going through the exams and just, you have to accumulate some real world experience. And I think that will be something really useful to import into Spain. Now you have a little bit of that, but not as much as you do in other countries. Likewise, in Germany, I remember that physics and many like Siemens in Germany, they work very closely together. But I think it's not just Spanish university to blame. I think there is also some blame in the industry. Both of us are not talking enough or as much as we should. Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. A new question, and I didn't have the opportunity to ask you before, is very briefly, which is the key point or the most interesting point that you take from your adventure in Panoramio, your first startup? The question I didn't ask you before was, how was your experience in Google as an employee during the time that you were working, and what was the positive inputs or insights that you get from working for a so big company?
Okay. By the way, Juan Cabrera in the chat is saying that there are some issues. I don't know if you can all hear me well. I don't know if it's okay. I'm going to keep talking, but if you have issues, please point them out. Okay, thank you. So the thing that I learned from Panoramio, there were many. One of them was to be a little bit of an, to don't be shy. That's something that you really do not want. It doesn't work to just get into a room and code something and then you are done and the world will notice. It doesn't work like that. You really need to go out and reach people, talk to people, so that people can understand what you are doing and use your product and hopefully get the ball rolling. Okay. So that's something that Eduardo had in spades. So he was a very extrovert person and he talked to people, and I didn't. And over time, I had to overcome a little bit of that, and talk to more people. That has always been useful. The second thing that we did is that we trust Google. And I know many people that when they talk to some big company, their default mode is to do not trust that people. And I think that you need to have some level of trust to move forward. Okay, otherwise it's going to block you so much. In our case, like Google really could have played it a little bit dirty, and it will not be dirty. It will be perfectly legal and okay. Like, we were putting our photos on Google Maps and on Google Earth. The added value was this symbiosis between photos and Google Earth and Google Maps, which were controlled by Google. We were getting revenues with Google Ads, which came from Google, obviously. And there was a point where Google was even paying for our servers. So, I mean, the dependence was total. But they didn't play that card, okay? They just came up with an offer and really tried to understand what we wanted and where we wanted to take the project for the next step. And I think that's really important. I think to establish that trust between partners. Yeah. In the case of Panoramio, another thing that was very important that I mentioned before in the Spanish session, in a related question, was that we were not really fishing for money. We were fishing for eyes. We were fishing for people that knew and used our product. And that was the key. And we always assumed that once we get the people, once we will be able, once the user came to our project, we will be able to monetize them one way or another. And that will be kind of, not that important as getting the people in the first place. And it worked out. Like the only thing that we did literally was to put one banner on the page. And eventually it provided enough money to sustain ourselves. So I'm reading the comment, and Andres say that Google played very dirty with our startup. I guess that really depends. I mean, it's big enough to have many different people inside. In our case, they behave like gentlemen. Different experiences. I don't know. So as a lesson, I would really like to emphasize the goal, and this has worked in all my startups. Our goal at heart has always been to provide some value for the user, and therefore to make something as popular as we could. Okay? Then there are caveats, because obviously you need the money. Okay, Tim O'Reilly from O'Reilly, he said to his employees that money is a little bit like gas for a car, in the sense that you need it, but it's not the goal of the trip to get it. Okay. And then he regretted saying that because people really did not pay attention to money. And it's really useful. You really need it. Okay, so it has to be in your mind. But for us, the first goal has always been to serve the user and to be able to attract more users. And it has always been the case that once we got users, we were able to monetize them well enough to pay for everything and and to make a benefit.
Okay. Basically, I want to ask you also about the. If you can give me one or two sentences, how was your experience in Silicon Valley or in during your stay working at inside the corporate of Google?
Well, yeah, and I didn't mention how it was at Google, so I will maybe answer that part from the previous question. At Google, my experience was very good, to be honest. At Google, I grew from being like an engineer in a tiny company before. I was working in Paris at a small company, and then as a solo engineer. And I grew to understand how it works at a big company in the US. Even though I was in Zurich, it was very similar. So the whole structure of having a product manager, what it is to be a product manager, having a tech lead, having a security engineer, having etc. The whole guacamole of a big company. And that was very useful for me because, over the years, I have been copying many of the ideas that were applied at Google on my next companies. So in FreePik, we adopted just many of the things, of the protocols that they had at Google as we have been growing. I think it will be a mistake to apply them on day one, but eventually it became very useful. Now, on your next question was my experience with Silicon Valley. My experience is that each city has kind of a vibe to it. Like I mentioned before, and I will extend on that, I was at a dinner in Silicon Valley with multiple friends. I just had like a couple of friends from Google and then friends of those friends. And literally the whole table was people that were working at Google, Facebook, which was really tiny at the time, and Microsoft, and then people doing their own startups. And being from Spain, I think when somebody tells you that they are working in a startup, I think our default mode is to be skeptical. Okay, it's like, oh, you're working on your own startup, I see. So you're unemployed, right? It was more or less like this that people look at me when I came to Malaga at the very beginning. It's like people do not really see this, as a real thing. And I had the same view, like, those two guys working on their startup. So what are you doing exactly? And it was like some social thing that I could not really comprehend. And then they sold to Twitter for 150 million, something like that. It was like, this is more common than it looks like. And in San Francisco, especially, it's very prevalent. Like most people are working on startups. I remember just, I was going through a building and I just look at the front door of the building and you see all the companies that are there. In a single random building, there were 3 companies that I knew of. It was Mapbox, 3 of them in a single building. It's the density of companies that they have is insane. And then I remember as an anecdote that I went to LA, okay, and yet again, I went to a dinner with some friends. All of them were working in the media industry. All of them were like, one of them was a screenwriter for a TV show. The other one was an actress, and the other one. So it's like each city has its own expertise and really excels. There's, how to say, the more and more you do something, the better and better you become. And it is really difficult to be better than San Francisco for startups because they have everything, right? They have like capital you want to do around, and you can meet many, many different people in a very short period of time. And it's not trivial to raise money, but it's certainly much easier than in other parts of the world. And there are many, many different parts in the world that are trying to copy them. Very few succeed. And I think it's because we do not yet understand what's making them successful. I think it's a blend. It's maybe a blend of geeks plus money or something like that, or a culture that really values people doing something, even though it's not the natural career path. Okay, so they are really not afraid of people just exploring different things. I think that's maybe my case in my family, but we are a little bit more, we try to follow a path a little bit more standard. And if you get out of the path, sometimes it becomes a little bit more difficult. People don't look at that as something that can succeed. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay. Also, a new question I didn't ask you in the previous interview is you have sold 2 companies. When did you decide? Two things. You were more listening, or you were looking for a buyer for your startups, and the second one is, when did you thought that was the right moment for selling, or was just something that wasn't planned? How to say? I don't know if I think that you understand me what I'm asking.
Sure. Yeah. So on the first case, we did not look to sell, but Google wanted to buy. And honestly, to me, it looked like a dream at the time. Like I was, at the time Google was publishing the puzzles to get into Google, and they were all like mathematical quizzes that I loved. And, there were many, many things that as an engineer I really did from the Google's culture. Today's, I think, has changed a little bit. People do not have the same perception of Google as we had like 10, 12 years ago. But it was really like the place to be as an engineer. And they came up with an offer that we could not reject, and then we rejected it. And we rejected it because they wanted us to drop the project and help them integrate Google Photos inside Google Maps. And we didn't want to stop the project. And then a few months later, they came back, and this time they were more flexible with, the future of the project, letting it a little bit more in our hands. And we reached an agreement, and economic conditions improved substantially also. So it was like a win-win for us. So that was the first one. Like, we were not really looking for making a sale, but it was a very good fit. And honestly, it will have been very difficult for us to succeed without Google. Like, I don't see how this will have played out if we didn't sell, to be clear. In the case of FreePik, it is completely different. Like, to be also honest, I was not looking, I was actually discouraging Alejandro and Pablo, my partners, which were the ones that really wanted to sell. And there were multiple reasons behind the personal reasons why they wanted to sell a little bit. We didn't sell the whole company, and actually I sold a very minority stake myself. So I remain just involved just as I was before, but even Alejandro and Pablo, they are both also involved with the company. Part of the reason to sell here was because we wanted to go to the next level, so to say. So together with selling a majority stake, it comes certain credibility for the company, but also some senior consultants, so to say, like very senior consultants. that have been through many different companies have a culture that is quite different from ours. And that's something that we want to learn from, not necessarily letting their culture get over our culture, but we want to know what they can bring to the table and how we can use the tools that they have to increase the growth of the company. Okay, so I mean, and I guess that everyone is going to have like a different reason at the end of the day to sell or not to sell. It's a very personal thing.
Okay, one question I didn't ask you either was in the 3 projects. I know that you have others, but in your professional career, what has been the main challenge that you have found, if there is one, in all the startups, or in case that has been different, which one was the most how to say, the most challenging one or the most tricky one that put maybe the startup success in jeopardy? Okay.
I mean, this is the big question that you cannot really answer.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are things that you cannot say, okay? But in general, what I can say is that it never worked when your focus is something different from the main product and the user experience. It is very common for people to get in love with some process, with some technology, with something that just is, it's related well enough with your product, with your company, that you can convince yourself like you are really doing your work, when in fact it's not exactly what you need. Okay, like what you really need is to nail the product and to make something that people want, and then get people to know. People have to know that you have this product and get traction and move forward and refine the product and to get more people. Technology has to help you do that, but it's not it's not the leitmotif of the company. I think many people fall to that. Like many people do something else similar, but not exactly. They do not look at the product. They invent their own problems they don't really have, or make it just more difficult than it is. Just try to follow the shortest path, because it is difficult enough as it is.
Okay, and the question that I asked you also before was, how do you think medium-sized cities like Malaga and we can say periphery ecosystems, not in the big league of investment hubs and technology hubs, what do you think is maybe can be the best strategy, or what they have to improve for having a stronger local ecosystem that maybe can generate startups like yours?
So I mentioned before, for those who live in Malaga, they know previous attempts like in Malaga Valley, which was partially successful. Like they succeed to create some ecosystem in the PTA, where foreign companies invested in Malaga, and that's very useful. Now, they did not succeed creating an ecosystem in Malaga itself, in the city, and they did not succeed into create a local ecosystem, so to say, like locally born companies that just succeed. The success stories that we have run parallel to those efforts. And I think part of it is, first of all, because the events that they created for that are not the events that people that are creating their own company are interested in. And I hope I don't sound like too critical or cynical of those efforts, because I understand the effort was substantial, and I do not know the people who were involved, but I believe that they are, skilled. But I think that everything around that project, in a way, send the wrong signal. It's like people who are interested in startups are typically very, very interested in technology, in design, in a product they have something inside that they want to bring to the world. And the whole entrepreneur thing is kind of a wrapper around that, right? You have to make it a company because it's the most efficient way to do that. But there is a core value that you want to bring to the world. Okay? And people that have that usually are talented in technology, in design, in something that they can express in this company. And typically these people, for some reason, we are not attracted by events where everybody is with a suit and a tie, if you understand what I mean. Okay, it is not about the money, and they make it look like it's about the money, and it is really not about the money. Part of it is about graphics, part of it it's about design, part of it is about technology. I will be excited to be part of an event where we talk about technology. I will be excited to be part of an event where we can discuss performance in the web, where we can discuss CDNs, where we can discuss, everything that's tech related excites me, cybersecurity, stuff like that. Now, they really focus on the whole money thing because that's the goal, right? Like authorities, what they want in a way that's something very useful. They want like companies. The way they think about companies is that things that make money and that employ people. Okay? But for the people that are creating that, that's kind of secondary. That's a side effect of what they want to do. That's how I think, at least. So I think the whole effort we're not really well focused. I think that we should learn here from Las Vegas, from San Francisco, where they started many local events, and they really managed to grow up like a local community of people that were able to help each other, to give tips to each other, etc.
Okay, final question. That is a personal one. I think that I mentioned you that I am angel investor. I'm also representing. I'm not going to talk here about other initiatives that I am involved, but I don't know if you are investing in startups outside your own project. And in this case, or if not, what will be in either way? What will be the three criteria that you were more will attract more attention to you to decide to bet or to go for one startup? Is the thing, is the market, is the business model? If you will be an investor or you are an investor, maybe you can tell. I don't know if you want to share with us if you are investing or not, but what are the criteria and you think that is more important for you to decide if one startup can be successful or not?
So I invested multiple times, but I didn't do any investment on the past, I think, at least 5 years or even more than that, because I've been so taken by the day-to-day in FreePik now that I literally didn't have any time for side projects, which is a shame. So I did some investing, and some of it has been like extraordinarily successful. Like I had the chance to invest in Smartic, for example, which is a very big ad company. They are doing online maths for kids. It has been very successful. In general, I never look at a business plan. I don't really believe into business plans because I just want to listen to the story, what they want to do, and get some rough understanding if it can work or not, and the team. And it is really important to have a team that can deliver and then can execute on what they want to do, because things are probably not going to work as you think they will work. And it's really important to have a team that can adapt to new circumstances and that can change course when needed. So there is no more than that. It's like something for me is that I like to understand. I mean, I want for my investment to be something that I'm a little bit passionate about, because otherwise I do not engage with the team. I will not come back. I'm busy enough, and plus, if I have free time nowadays, I prefer to spend it with family. But if it's not something that I really like, as an idea, I will probably not be related to that. And then it just becomes, something financial, and then I'm not interested.
Okay, so I think that we have arrived to the end of the interview. Thank you again for being with us. Obviously, I'm pretty sure that maybe in the future we will have another opportunity to talk and maybe approach other angles of your experience. But for a first event, I think that has been very productive and very interesting. I don't know if you want to add anything else, or you have a final comment or remarks. And if I will be announcing the next event, and I will be opening networking rooms if people want to do networking. If you want to stay, you are more than welcome, obviously. But if you have to leave, we can stay doing networking and for the next 10 minutes or something like that.
I actually do not have much time, so I will stay a little bit, but I had a meeting at 5:30, so I will be a few minutes late, but I really have to join that. So
okay, so anything more? So I announced the next event will be in Spanish. Sorry for the English-speaking ones. Will not is mine. The speaker is only Spanish-speaking and Hebrew, because he's from Israel. He's an expert in the startup nation ecosystem, and he's doing the bridge between the Spanish and the Israeli ecosystem. And basically, we will be talking about how Israeli investors are looking for different things than from the Spanish investors in typical startups. And I think that can be quite interesting topic to go through. So Joaquin, if you have to leave, you are free to leave whenever you just want. I'm going to open the networking rooms and 10 minutes, and that's it. I think that hopefully everybody have enjoyed the interview, and if they have any other question, they can contact me, and I will send you an email with the people that maybe can be interested in asking you a question, and you will go back to them if you are if you want to the specific person. So
please, as I have to leave, if somebody has any question, if you can just send them to my email or something, or you can give them my email, I'm perfectly fine with that. So I see some questions that I didn't answer in the chat. So Saravanan Durai said that he or she has a graphics and web services also, and they are specialists on graphic design. So how to increase sales and where we focus on graphics or web services? Really difficult to, I do not know your business, and sadly, or not sadly, like graphics and web services is so huge. There's so many different things that are different for every subsection of that I could not provide any meaningful answer to that. Just looking for the name, I will go for web services because it is something that scales better, but maybe I completely misunderstood your question. So sorry about that. And I think there are not any more questions. Somebody asked and I answered by chat, like if I feel that any of my current startups can become a lifestyle business. I really feel like that about FreePik. Like, to me, I'm not looking to start something different. I'm perfectly happy, like trying to take it as far as we can. And you never know what the future holds for you, but I'm really, really happy to keep the ball rolling and try to push the company. And another question, what about going first approach to market, Malaga or English-speaking countries? I mean, it's a stopper to Spanish culture versus the world. I do not know. I can just mention, my experience. It didn't stop me. It didn't stop the people that I know that started a company. I think that initially you can create a very successful company with very few people. So if you are skilled enough and your friends are skilled enough, I think that you should be able to make it work. Okay. And I think that's all. I'm sorry, but I have to leave. So thank you very much to everyone. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening and your questions. And thank you, Miguel. And again, so sorry for being late for the Spanish session.
No worries. It has been a pleasure having you, and stay in touch, and all the best with your current project and the future ones. Stay safe and best regard. Bye.
Likewise.
For you that want to stay, I'm going to open networking rooms